Now, what areas do we have? What areas are we exposed to? Well, that's one of the key things is in fraud risk management. For the particular company, for a particular industry, you have to look at what areas. As I said, it varies by company, it varies by industry. If you're in the cash business, if it's counted by one person, deposited by one person, recorded by one person, you are exposed to risk. If one staff does all payments online, records them, etc., and no one checks, you're exposed to risk. Owner leaves signed checks blindly. You know, I'm going away. Man, here, how many do you need? You're exposing yourself to risk. Right? Or you got a stack of invoices there. Oh, those are the invoices. So what are we paying today? Here are the checks. Okay, just put them aside. I'll just quickly sign all the checks, and you just flick through them without checking back to the invoices. Credit card, as we noted before, auto payment, no review. With suppliers, I remember a case from about 10 years ago on the mainland. It was an architect firm, I think it was. It was a professional firm. And what happened was that a company suddenly said, oh, can you please provide me with support for our bills for the last 4 or 5 years? Well, suddenly they got the support at the time, and it took a little bit of trouble to get it. They finally got it. And let's say, for example, they were billed $500,000, but the hours were only $100,000 added up to rate time. They said, look, our contract said $200 an hour times rate times the number of hours, it works out to $100,000. Why did you bill us $500,000? Premium billing, we did good rate. There's nothing in our contract that says premium billing. So consequently, I ended up in a lawsuit. It was in the papers. I had nothing involved with it, but I read it in the papers. And consequently, it ended up a bit of a mess. So make sure you do review your contracts if you're exposed to those areas. No checking of expense reports. So what I'm trying to stress here is that for your particular business, you have to look at what areas you're exposed to. It varies. Now, what type of controls? Now we're getting into proactive here, a little bit more proactive. We recognize the issues. We know where your exposure is. We know why fraud occurs. One thing is receipts. Let's say, for example, if you're in the rental business, you've got 100 apartments, and you're renting them at how much? Let's make the math simple. Let's say you've got 10 apartments, and you're renting it at $1,000. So you should get 10 grand a month. Simple math. But you only see 6 grand going into your bank account. So there are ways to reconcile for you to ask questions. May not be anything wrong. Maybe payments are made out of cash. But if possible, try to reconcile your revenue, even if it's by hours. Number of hours staff worked, what should my revenue be? Just some overall test. Deposits versus cash. This much cash came in, how much was deposited? Simple reconciliations you can do to give yourself a little bit more comfort so you sleep better. Bank reconciliations. That's one of the key functions in accounting. People hate doing bank reconciliations, particularly non-accountants. Even some accountants hate doing them. But this is a key function. It cannot be understated at all. Segregated if possible. Potential option is you have your accounting firm do your bank rec. Negotiate a nice, reasonable fee, of course. And, or, worst case scenario, get a copy of the bank statement yourself. Get the copy, get the checks. Today it's easy, online. CC me, you tell the bank. I want to see it first. You scan it. What's this deposit? What's this payment online? I don't deal with, with Staples. I buy everything from somewhere else. What is this? No, what, 4 telephone bills? We only have 1. Right? So just that scan. Again, maybe a logical explanation. But at least you're asking questions. It shows you on top of things. It keeps you in touch with your finger. Helps you putting your finger on the pulse. Payroll. Important to check payroll, as we noted. Approve payroll. Have the bank send a summary to you so that you know. So you can check it, like I said before. Straight to yourself. It can be done online. You just quickly scan it. Hold it. John Smith. I don't have any John Smiths from when you got Mary Smith. Who's John Smith? Right? And Mary Smith does the payroll. If department heads, if you're that bigger, have them scan it as well, because you may be out of touch. Payments. Again, we looked at the credit cards, what was important to review them. Debits as well. Be vigilant with the expense reports. Make sure you have the right policies to back them up. Review and cancel your invoices if possible. Well, you should be if possible. And purchasing. Now, when you're doing purchasing, of course, is that you should have a process, you should have limits. How much do you do? How much do other staff do? How much can be approved? Again, don't give blank checks or blank permission to everyone in the company. Keep the documentation. Have the quotes. Do your homework. Get more than one quote. Right? Check out the quality of work. Get references. Surprising how that's not done. Guys, as cheap as you go ahead and do, you don't check your references. Important to understand the hours, to understand the contract. One key thing is about the financial information. To me, I think that financial information is key for the business owner. Not just about fraud that you're worried about, it's managing the business. To make the right decisions, make sure you get the right goods on time. It could be financial information, non-financial information. You've got to go know what's going on to manage that business so you can meet your goals, so at the end of the day you can retire happily and comfortably. And you've really got to sit down. What do I need to manage my business? At the same time, what do I need to minimize my exposure to all risks, not just fraud risk? So it's important to do that. As we saw, hotlines. Small business may be difficult, but there are some reasonable hotlines there, including by email or availability, or have the process. And I think 50% of the tips are anonymous. That's interesting. That's statistics. People don't want to stick their neck out. But they have a conscience. So take advantage of that conscience. Caution, I like to really be caution in the sense is that who determines fraud? It's not the forensic accountant, it's not you, the business owner. Fraud can only be determined by the trier of fact, which is the judge and jury. So don't suddenly walk around and say, they're guilty, I've got them, and happy, and sometimes I get a call, I want to get that person, they've done this. Whoa, 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 have you talked to your lawyer? Has he advised you or she advised you about, if you haven't, you best call your lawyer, maybe a three-way telephone conversation. Because prior to judgment, you're only dealing with allegations or suspicions. Innocent till proven guilty by due process. Not your process, not the accountant's process, it's due process, the legal system. Because as I noted before, you could end up with defamation of character, unlawful dismissal, or ill will amongst your staff. Gee, Rankin always shoots from the hip, upset the best staff, and he quit, look what happened. So you've got to be really sure, you've got to have the process in place. And one thing is that you cannot eliminate fraud risk, but you can manage it. It's never going to disappear. You may hopefully never ever have an issue with your supplier, with your vendors, with your staff, but you don't know. And seek appropriate advice, whether it's like accounting, legal, but you have to, basically you don't act on your own. So based upon that, the cautions. One, be careful of jumping to conclusions, right? Could be a mistake, could be a misunderstanding. Maybe you misunderstood the contract with the people. Could be a logical explanation. Sometimes you get, I found something here, get all excited, I'm all eager. And I sit back, no, I can't have that feeling, Rankin. You got to stand back. We got to get the facts first before we make a conclusion. And even then, we just present the facts, and someone else is going to make the decision, and not me. Or it could be a bad business decision. And that occurs quite often where, in the sense is that you've gone in respect to a business deal, and you really felt you've been ripped off. You get all excited that you had this place built, and the contractor, or it could be a software developer, has ripped you off. And you spend all the money, you hire lawyers, you hire forensic accountants, you go to court, and judge says, agrees with the other fellow or lady and say, gee, it was a bad decision. I gave them all the facts. I did exactly what the contract said, and it was a bad decision. That's all it was. And the judge says, yep, it was a bad decision. It wasn't fraud. So sometimes there's a fine line between the bad decision and the fraud. Don't be your own lawyer. That's what we have lawyers for. They know the law. Get your facts together. And don't be your own forensic accountant. Because, as I said, if you don't get the information together properly, it could be thrown out of court. And you may be, it could be there's concealment. It may look like one person, but it's actually someone else, someone really smart that's trying to fool everybody. Or it could be a mistake. So we talk about forensic accounting. What can they do for small business? To me, I really feel we don't focus enough upon the proactive side, effective management, integrate the fraud risk management with the controls, with the normal business operations. Integration as versus suppression. You don't want to suppress your staff. You don't want to suppress your business. You want to integrate what controls you have so you become more effective, more efficient. If you have contracts with like software, do your planning. Make sure you get your specs up front for the software. Make sure you go through the various scenarios. Be proactive. Enhance the human factor. Forensic accountant can help with the policies, the hiring. What's the best policies? And reactive, to me, that's the last resort. To do with the investigations, doing expert report. In BC now we have certain rules you have to follow in respect to expert reports. I think what's important to recognize at the end of the day is that fraud is a fraud risk is a very sensitive matter. Has consequences, is personal, and if you're wrong, it can have direct consequences as well. So you've got to be aware, you have to be prepared, you have to manage that exposure to minimize any negatives, and also, more importantly, to avoid, as I've stressed many times, upsetting the innocents. So thank you very much.